Alright guys, not the best weld, but definitely a weld regardless. So we actually had to, so here's the cat, we actually had to weld the O2 here, and it's not at the best angle. You really want this, so like if you can see it's not perfectly, like you really want it a little bit higher up for condensation. So what happens is like you get condensation in the exhaust and it covers the O2 sensor. You really want it at like a somewhat downward angle. That way like the water will kind of drip off the sensor. But unfortunately there's just not enough space to do it. Now, the reason is that if you look at the mid pipe here, it's actually both banks. So it basically works its way as like a giant Y pipe. And this is the only place that we could find that it was collected together. So we looked further up, like where the stock O2 sensor's at. It's also collected there, but the O2 sensor uses like a motorcycle style one. It's like M18 or something like that. I can't remember, but there's no way that we could get in there to weld a new O2 bung. Plus the fit would be really close. So it's just gonna have to be further back. Now, with that being said, there is a good chance we will have to extend this harness. And what we would do is that I believe they do sell like extension harnesses from the top to the bottom, so we're gonna have to definitely do that. The IAV is welded up shut, so if you guys don't know, there's a pipe that used to go here that goes all the way up to like a little pump looking thing at the front, and what it does is that it puts oxygen into the exhaust to help warm up the O2 sensors. Remember, the age of this car, it's only got a single wire O2 sensor that you can see here, but it does not have a inbuilt heater like modern day O2 sensors do. So we, like I said, we cut that off. We're not, again, with the Fuel Tech, we're not using any of the stock O2 sensor stuff, but it was just too far away, so we couldn't get it there. The next thing is that we were going to weld a sensor into the radiator for the coolant temp sensor. So the Fuel Tech uses like a GM style CLT. The problem is that this is copper. So we would have to braze this and we'd have to remove it and hot tank and all that other stuff. So instead, I'm just going to order a radiator hose adapter. This hose, by the way, is 41 millimeter. So we've got one on order for 40 mil, which should be totally fine. We'll put it up top close to the thermostat, and then that should be that. And finally, here is the remainder of the IAV hose, as you can see. So we just basically lobbed all that out and got rid of it out of the engine bay. So this is the Fuel Tech Nano Pro. It's been out for a little bit, but this is actually the first one I've had run through the shop. So basically what this is their wideband gauge. So their old one was just a regular display. This one's a little bit more at 400 bucks, which is kind of pricey in my opinion. But what's really cool about it is, let's see it here. It's pretty small. But the really cool, interesting feature about this guy is the simple fact that you can make it into a touchscreen for virtual buttons, and it works via CAN. One thing that what I really liked about this actually was the fact that the harness is the same. So meaning if you had like the original Nano, then you can plug in the Nano Pro. So just to show you the back, same exact connector. The really interesting thing about the Nanos, whether it's a Pro or not, is that you can actually run them on different O2 sensors. So you can pick between like an LS2 or LS2 or LS 4.9. So either one will work. The wiring obviously is different. They do make harnesses, or you can make your own. So again, this is the very first one that I've had here at the shop, and the footprint's about the same. I think this one's a little bit wider than the old one. So I'm gonna go plug this guy in and see if we can get it configured. So here it is booted up with key on. We are going to select English, FT-CAN 2.0. So this is Fuel Tech's native CAN bus. Now FT-CAN 1.0 only deals with like the older ECUs, like the FT400, 500, 600. On all the 450, 650, etc. They moved to FT-CAN 2.0. A really interesting thing in the user's manual is that you can actually hook this up to regular OBD2. It doesn't work on every vehicle. There's like a specific subset of OBD2 that it can read, so that's really interesting there. We're using a Bosch 4.2 is what we're using. OT sensor is disconnected. It's disconnect it. And so here are our settings here, which are really cool. And the manual is also built in. That's pretty awesome. Okay. All right, so here is the, let me show you guys here. So if you look in the upper right-hand side, you'll see that there's a box for Nano Pro. We're gonna click on that. It's connected to the Nano Pro itself, and as you can see here, we can customize a couple different dashboards for it. And then you can select apparently which dashboard comes up, you know. And check this out. So you have everything here. You can show like all your settings are here. We can select which ECU we're on, shift light, I mean, all this stuff. That's really cool. So that's basically it. Seems pretty straightforward, so I'm pretty cool with that. And like I said, it's a pretty sweet display, you know, just to be able to add buttons. I've always had an issue with when you go to wire stuff up, you know what I mean, like doing launch control, burnout mode, trans brake, stuff like that. Mounting button switches is always a pain, but to be able to put switches onto this display here, and you know, normally we mount these right next to the fuel techs themselves. This is not the final place of the fuel tech if you've been following along on the Z31 stuff, but I mean, it's going to be pretty close together. Once we get it all fully mounted and everything, you know, we could use this button for a lot of different things. The Z31 going to a fuel tech was more along the lines of keeping the car alive, more so than anything else. But, you know, down the line is like, with these old electronics, man, you never know what's going to happen. So for instance, what if the AC compressor finally fails, you know, or not the AC compressor, but the climate control panel fails, you know, you could repurpose this into a switch. Same thing, you know, I'm sure you guys have seen, you can do push button start on the display for the fuel techs. So, you know, there's a lot of applications for this. I think it's just really interesting, and it's a really clean setup that you can really keep everything together. One other thing that I do like about it is that it's also an external display. So you know, the fuel tech display on pictures looks huge, but in actuality it's not really that big. So, you know, you could actually just pull you know, wideband completely off this and not even have to worry about it, you know, and just use obviously this display here. So yeah, really cool. Just wanted to show it to you guys. So I've been checking this out a little bit more. This is a secondary dashboard here to show you there. So it's the software is actually pretty intuitive here. You can basically see, look at that. So you can actually have it display any type of you know, like anything that the fuel tech is reading, and you can break it all up. And like I said, again, it's really nice in the sense that you can really just add whatever you want here, between buttons and actual things that read, you know. So say engine starts temp, you know, ethanol blend and things like this. Like, you know, for instance, ethanol blend is not super duper important right away. You know, it is important when you're changing fuels and stuff like that. But, you know, if you know your blend is, you know, E67 or whatever the case may be, you know, you may not have to look at that during a drag race, you know, or when you're racing somebody. So it's not super important, but it is important, you know, if that makes sense. And I really like the outputs here. What this means, I'm assuming that this would tell us whether an output is on or off, you know, so that would be useful in the sense if you're running like a second fuel pump, second or third fuel pump, to know that the ECU is turning it on. So anyways, but yeah, I just wanted to show you guys a little bit more of the software side of it now that I'm playing with it a little bit more. So super duper cool.